So just give us like the Coles notes of kind of that story.
Yeah, I grew up playing hockey. My dad was an NHL hockey player for 9 years, and our family moved back to Essex, and my dad opened two Tim Hortons in Leamington, and grew that to 6 stores. And I came in, I actually dropped out of university to kind of come in and help them run the stores, and we grew that over 14 years, and it was a lot of fun. Learned a ton. Franchise community was great.
Yeah, right on. And it is being in that franchise world is kind of like a cool spot to be, because one thing about franchises is that they've got it all figured out.
Yes.
So there's not much to thinking that you have to do is they're like, this is what works, just go and do it. Now that doesn't take away from franchise owners in any way, because you still need to control costs, and you still need to manage people. You still need to lead people. And if you're missing those elements, you're not going to be successful as a franchisee.
No, for sure. And for me, it was great to kind of have that structure, coming in, and it's almost like you got an undergrad in business school because of the structure they have right in place. And but there's things that frustrate you too, is like someone that wants to be an entrepreneur that you can't go out and market and stuff like that, right? And that's kind of the reason why I left.
Yeah, no, I hear that a lot from people that are in franchises, is that the one thing they miss is like that creative element, So it is like this very which is better in some ways, because do you know how many small I come from the restaurant business originally, and do you know how many small business owners, what do you think the percentage of small business owners that want to turn their company into a franchise?
Oh, I would think 95% of small business
I'd
owners.
say I don't even know. I'm just making this stat up, but it's like 100%. Everyone has the dream of creating a franchise, but the problem being is that there is just a ton of work that goes into creating that franchise, and the systems, the systems.
Time. The systems are that's probably my biggest takeaway from Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Is that how structured they are, and there's no way you can scale a business without systems in place.
Yep.
And they really do a good job. And Tim Hortons was great with always fresh and cleanliness standards and stuff like that in the restaurant industry are what make you successful, right?
Yeah. And the thing is about those systems is that they're boring.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why most entrepreneurs, I would say, fail at ever becoming a franchisee, because it's or becoming a franchise, I should say, because the systems part of it isn't really the fun, unless you're kind of like a numbers guy that likes doing that kind of stuff and likes counting. And even running my own business, it's from an early stage in my life, I recognize the importance of systems, but they were always secondary to me. For me, it was always about the creativity of how can we create this promotion? How can we make the customer's experience so much better? When you get into the numbers, it gets boring, but unfortunately, it's necessary. So to make that leap into becoming a franchisor and taking it to the next level. So it's kind of interesting now that you're taking this step out of the franchisee world and into this into entrepreneurship and that creativity. So you got your fingers in a bunch of stuff already, right from the get go.
Yeah, we said when I went over for dinner, it was kind of I wanted to take a month off and just kind of relax and vacation. And I feel like I'm busier now than I've ever been. I'm involved in some student rental real estate, and also some angel investing, and maybe possibly moving that into venture capitalists. So it's been fun. I've been a month out of Tim Hortons from the day-to-day perspective, and just learning. That's my biggest thing. I just want to keep learning and understanding this new world, and making sure that I'm putting those systems in place, right, that I kind of learned from Tim Hortons.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
man. And so that kind of brings me to our conversation that we had at my house, because obviously, the majority of what I kind of teach and coach about is spiritual growth, personal development, these types of things. And you were telling me about this experience that you had, where you're, I'll just let you tell the story, because I'm gonna ruin it.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start, really. I guess I didn't even know there was such thing as spirituality probably a year ago, to be honest. But long story short, I was in my backyard cutting my grass, and a tree almost fell on me and almost killed me. And it kind of just put things in perspective, really, of it doesn't matter how much you kind of are steering the ship or whatever that looks like, that at any moment, life's pretty fragile. And I was in my backyard, and there was no wind, and a tree almost took me down, right? And kind of just put in perspective, I don't want to waste 1 second of my life. And the framework of regret minimization, and the idea that when I'm 80, I want to be in a position that I can look back on my life and not have one regret on it. So, and just kind of the idea that, like I was saying to you before, Dave, that like, in the franchise community, I probably had 2,000 employees over the course of that time frame. And Tim Hortons, coaching hockey, I probably had 300 to 400 hockey players that I coached. And I never really put that framework on myself of like the things that I want to do and accomplish. And the tree incident, or whatever you want to call it, kind of set that framework for me to kind of like be like, okay, time to make sure you're getting everything you can out of life. And that's sort of where it started, really.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I mean, I don't love that you almost got killed by a tree, but it's interesting though that something like that can put your life into perspective. And for me, my path has been slow, and it was because I had a mentor that was kind of guiding me there. Mm-hmm. But in some ways, it's like that tree almost falling you was like a great gift, because it kind of like woke you up into like, hey, I got to start like looking into this, and that kind of like. You created this thing is I gotta coach myself, right? Mm-hmm. And so from there, what did coaching yourself look like?
What I honestly did was I just started YouTubing stuff.
Oh, nice.
And I kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, what do I want to be? And I really want to make an impact on people, and I want to make an impact. With this whole COVID thing and the mask and the shots and stuff like that. That it's like, what? How do you get in a position to make those decisions? Right? How do I get in the room with these people when they're making these decisions? And I started doing research on the people that are in the room, the Bill Gates, the Jeff Bezos, the politicians, and everything else that they're doing. And I was like looking like, what do these people do to get where they're at? Mm-hmm. And, I started looking at things like meditation and getting up at 5 a.m. and working out in the morning and, having a piece of spirituality involved, just everything, kind of like what all these high performers are doing. And that's sort of where it started. Yeah,
right on. And so now, because I think you got this great story of like, in some ways people, I gotta say this without offending you, so I gotta be careful. So in some ways people are gonna look at you.
It's pretty tough to offend me. So
okay, sure. But in some ways people are gonna look at you and say, oh, you got this dad that was making NHL money, which was way different than the NHL money that people are making now, just to make that clear. He started this Tim Hortons, and now you're an angel investor, right? And it's like, but that is like such the smallest piece of the puzzle. And it's like, it's so amazing. I'm so like mesmerized by guys like you that, kind of grew up with means and then were able to become like successful still, like in their own right. And that's where like, I know the way you're running Tim Hortons was like, you were like a businessman. Like I feel that about you. And I got my buddy, James Knapp, that owns Ken Knapp Ford out in Essex.
Same kind of guy. Yeah.
Exactly. Like he just grew up where he basically was like, he never has to worry about money. If he never worked a day in his life, he never had to worry about money, right? Like his dad got him set up, right? But he still had it in him and still had that drive and that desire in him. And this is where I see like this next step for you to kind of like do this thing now, like on your own, and be like, hey, I'm like going to develop a name here. But what I want to ask you this question is what do you think the difference is between you and the guy that grew up with means, right? But then like really had the motivation to like become something greater, right? And a guy that grew up with the means and went to drugs, went to alcohol, like, because you see it is like almost like it is like a complete opposite. It's like very rare do I hear of people that grew up with means that are like just mediocre. They became a teacher, and
that's a big one to unpack. Like it's funny because like my dad was an NHL hockey player, so when I played, my dad played hockey in Essex. I played for the same teams that he played on, so there was always kind of like probably like a programming there of like trying to live up to your dad at some point. You know what I mean? So it's probably like deep inside of there probably. But for me, I think it's more about like, I know the opportunity that I was given. You know what I mean? My dad came from a very poor family. And I always kind of had that mind frame that I got to do $1 better than what they did. If that's, whatever they give me or the opportunities they've given me, that it's my responsibility to make sure that I make it better than when I got it. And I think I've always kind of like had that in me of that. And there's probably a piece of pride and stuff, that's involved in that too. But for me, it was just like, hey, I'm the luckiest guy in the world that I was born into this situation, that I've been around high performing people my whole life, that the next stage for me was to leave Tim Hortons and test that, right?
Yep.
I think if I would have stayed in Tim Hortons for the next 30 years, that I would have been a really, I don't know if angry is a word, but it just wouldn't have fulfilled my potential. Yep. And sometimes you just have to make those decisions for personal growth. And like, again, for me, I think it just comes down to that I know how lucky I am, right? That I was born in this position, and it's on me to make sure I do the most I can with it.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I think it's, like a really aware answer of like being aware of having that gratitude. It's like gratitude is I think it's like one of my 5 key points that like transformed my life, was just being like, I'm just so grateful for everything that I have. And once you're grateful for what it is that you do have, you stop focusing on the things that you don't have. And actually that could be that piece of the puzzle, is people that are obsessed with what they don't have, that come from a place of means, may get into go down the wrong path, right?
Yeah.
And people that are grateful for the opportunity that they've been given are probably going to continue on the path to maximize their potential. And the other thing that I heard you say there that I think was amazing was like being around high performing people. Like that is so important in this day and age. And that's why I see, it's funny, like because I've been doing these podcasts, and like you and I, we've always been acquaintances, but like last little bit we're like, hey, let's start hanging out a little bit more. And it's because it's like you want to start surrounding yourself with people that are committed to maximizing their potential in whatever way that is. It's like, for me, there's an entrepreneurial element of it, but to me it's really about, it's like enlightenment is my goal. But I mean, like, I want to be around people that want to be enlightened. If you want to be in amazing shape, I got my buddy Tony Smith at Grown's Garage Gym. It's like he's my inspiration for that, right? And so it's like, you want to surround yourself. So it's another great recognition to have that and be around those people. Like, why don't we go here? Like, we're going all over the place. What are some of the lessons that you learned from like being around your dad, for example, a guy that was able to play sports at like a super high level, like the highest level?
There's so much like routines. Right? Like you look at these hockey players like a Ray Bourque or someone like this, like they get up, they eat the same thing, they do the same thing every day, right? They're focused on their craft. They don't have any distractions anywhere else, things like that. It's funny, like just even like your second wind. Like I was reading a book the other day, when you have that oh shit moment when you're working out, you have 60% more left in the tank.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's from Goggins.
Yeah. There's 60% more in the tank. So like, I remember as a kid that my dad would tell me when he was coaching me, like, get to your second wind. Like he never told me why, but now like I understand that there's 60% more left in you when you get that oh shit moment, right? Like what can you accomplish if you get to 95% of your potential? But like the idea of like everybody's got it in them, right? And it's the idea that we release our potential. Yes. You don't create it, you release it. Yeah. And I think that that's a really powerful thing when you kind of wrap your head around it, right?
Yeah, man. I think those are 3 key points. I mean, you could write a book just on those 3 points. Literally, it's like, and then, this is a big thing I teach people with spiritual growth too. It's like, it's not that you have to go out there and get it. It's like, it's already in you. It's so you have to uncover what it is that's blocking it from, kind of. So it's like the analogy I always give is like the sun is always shining on you, right? But it's all the programs and belief systems and stories and thoughts that we have that are the clouds, right? So, but the sun's always been there, right? So we just got to start looking at what are these clouds that are blocking that sunshine, right? And man, I think that's huge. And we all have the ability, regardless of where we come from, to maximize our potential. And it may look different for different people, like what maximizing your potential is, but it definitely is within all of us. And I think you've kind of been like this great student of how to maximize your potential. You got into like reading and speed reading.
Yeah, I know, nuts.
Yeah,
you can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's important. It's like I have like a routine, and I think the one when you said one of your points there that you learned from your dad was a routine of these high performers, and it's like I call it foundation. It's like you have to have these 5 to 10 things that you do every day to be like at your best, right? And I know when I'm off that foundation, like I'm just a little bit off, you know. And so but one of those keys to my foundation is daily learning, right? And it's like I don't never go a day without learning something new, And for me, it's through reading and it's through Audible is where I pretty much learn everything. Like I am constantly like there is never a moment when I'm in my car and there's not an Audible book on, right? So that's big. But I also really do enjoy the process of like just sitting down and reading, And I just watched the movie. King Richard about the Williams sisters.
Oh yeah, how was it?
Oh, it was literally the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Cool. It was just like because it's all about like what can really happen if you actually put your mind to like achieving something, right? And the key takeaway I got from that movie was belief, right? The father believed it even before those girls were born, and he instilled that belief in them, and they believed it even when they were like 10 years old. Like they knew they were going to be the best in the world. And I've been trying to teach one of my clients that the belief comes before the success.
You gotta feel the person you want to be before you get there.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Right.
Like you can't just like have it in your head. You have to like feel it.
Yes.
Right. And there's like a saying that's like, if you feel it, you become it. But it's like super success happens when the feeling meets you walking towards your goal at the same time, sort of thing, right? And like you see Tiger Woods, all these people that are like, maybe that's a little bit extreme, right? But if you want to get extreme results, you're going to have to be extreme. Like I was saying something to a family member, I was like, will you guys view me any differently if I just wore the same thing every day? And they're like, yeah, it's a little bit crazy, right? But like that's like the mindset. Like these people that are high performers, that they're doing things that other people don't do. And, it's an interesting path to get on, right?
It is, because you have to have the wherewithal to deal with society's backlash from being that different.
Yeah,
I saw it. Like I remember when I was like I was getting like really like in shape like 8 years ago. I actually just I got a reminder picture on Facebook today, and I was like, fuck, I was lean, man. Like I was really lean. Like right now I weigh like 210 pounds. I weighed like 175.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like a huge difference, right? And I remember when I was doing that, like every single person I knew was being like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, stop, like go eat some food. Like, you know what I mean? Like you look sick, you look unhealthy. But I was like, I was in the best shape of my entire life. I was like light as a feather. I was doing a bunch of MMA at the time. And I was like a fucking ninja, man. And I was like, but everyone around me, and I'm actually wondering now as I have this conversation with you, is if that was one of the reasons why I kind of like fell off, it's because of all of this subconscious pressure from society to like get back to what everyone else is doing. And, one of my spiritual teachings is about like crabs in the bucket. And, the story goes is that the guy's walking down a dock, and I might have said this to you the other night. I did, right? So I'm going to say it for the podcast. So the guy's walking down a dock, and he sees this fisherman with all these crabs in a bucket, and he says to the fisherman, hey man, you better put a lid on that bucket, all your crabs are going to escape. And the fisherman says, oh, there's no need, because every time one crab tries to climb out, the other crabs pull it back down. And so essentially that's what's happening in society all the time. Is like as one person tries to rise up, and I saw that in the movie too, is like the neighbor was yelling at him saying, you're working those girls too hard, and like ended up like calling social services on them and all this kind of thing, right? And it's because it's like, as you rise up, it makes other people uncomfortable, right? And naturally, they want to pull you back down to their level. Now, it's not malicious; it's all subconscious, right? So you have to just have acceptance for where they are, but you have to have the mental capacity and the awareness. And now I'm looking back, and I'm like, I was aware of the crabs in the bucket concept back then, but it still kind of got to me, And so once I kind of reached my goal, I was like, okay, now I can go back to my normal life where I'm like everybody else, right?
There's so much to that too, like the idea of like, I mean, the ego, right? Like you can unpack that thing like crazy, but like when you start to make different choices, your friends group maybe is in a different position because that's who you were around, right? And I've been really lucky that my friends have been really like supportive in this. Like it wasn't like I was like a homeless guy or something before, right? And had this transformation. I was a pretty successful guy. I just think that there was another level that I could get to, and everybody's been, my family, my friends, very supportive, and like this direction I'm going. But it's interesting. You're always going to get the idea of like super gluing your intentions in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea of like, that it doesn't matter what anybody tells you about what your goals are and stuff like that. You fully believe of where you're going, and you're taking the steps towards that in that direction. And it doesn't matter what someone tells you shouldn't do it or whatever. Like, it's your intention of what you want to do.
Yeah. And, we are always pulled by our intention. So you have to, like, intentions are like a tricky little thing, because there could be the intention, like, let's say, for example, to become like uber successful, right? You're the angel investor to like build this crazy wealth, that could be the intention. But if you have a stronger underlying intention that you're unaware of, that you're fearful of failing, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Then you're always going to end up getting pulled towards like not taking the steps that you need to take, because of this intention of, I don't want to look like a failure, right? So we got to really like learn how to start unpacking those I guess subtle little subconscious intentions. But it is true, if you really truly set a true intention, and it's not blocked by any of the programs that you've taken on, there's actually, like, you're just going to be guided in that direction. Like, if you want to become the next Tiger Woods, probably too late for you and I, but if you want to become the next Tiger Woods, and you really truly believe that, you're going to be pulled in that direction. And part of being pulled in that direction will be the unpacking of these programs that you're holding on to that limit you, right? So I think that's the kind of the path that you're on here now, is this. You have this intention. Like, what is the intention for you, though? I guess it's to maximize your potential, you would say, yeah? Like
I said, I think for me, the intention is to get in the room where you can make these decisions, right? And it seems like the direction to go with that is to make as much money as you possibly can, right? Like, all the people that make the decisions are the people that have the wealth, right? And you have to, like you said, like, I think that life, a lot of times we think that opportunities are finite in life. They're not finite. It's just a matter of like you said, feeling what you want to do, and you just pick the opportunities out of the air. Like, they're everywhere. If you have the right mindset, you can walk that path. If you're negative, you're going to attract negative things. If you're positive, you're going to attract positive things. If you want to be successful, then you have that mindset, you're going to attract successful things in your life, right? And I don't think we were taught that, like, growing up. Like, really, it was
hell no.
Whether it was in religion or school or anything else, like, that mindset is like really not available to people, but now it is. Like,
it's coming. This spirituality thing is becoming way more mainstream, and people are becoming aware more and more of what you hold in mind tends to manifest. Like, that's like one of the cornerstones of what I teach. Is not mine. It's just like, it's been around for years, hundreds of thousands of years, but. I think you're right, is that people are becoming more aware of it, but I think they're still pretty lost when it comes to like circling back to actually believing it. Like, do you have any cause like, I think you really believe it.
Yeah, I think like there's stages to it, and I never like really sat down and been like, okay, here's the first stage. I think like when you first kind of like become awoke, I guess would be the word that people probably use. Is that
it might be the wrong word now, because woke has become this negative word as well. But
once you kind of like get this idea, become aware, like your purpose or whatever you're trying to do, that like you kind of like are like, oh my God, everything's new, and like I'm going everywhere, and you have a lot of directions. And I really kind of got aware of that early and realized, okay, I'm going to take some time to like try a bunch of different things and go down different alleys and see which one fits my lifestyle choices and things like that, right? And it's interesting. Like it's about reading. It's about reading, and it's about knowledge. And I think that at the end of the day, if you ever think that you're the smartest person in the room, or you know everything, you're not the smartest person in the room, and you don't know everything. Yep. And I think if you get up every day and you read and you kind of learn, like you said, learn something new every day, you do that over the course of a year, you're going to be better off. If you do that for 5 years, you're going to be really good. And if you do it for 10, 15, now you're talking about really high level people that have continued to make this compound interest type of investment into themselves. And like that's sort of like I'm about a year and probably a half in, and that's my goal. I just want to continue to do this every day, and it's about learning.
Yeah, and you said so many like great things in there. And I think the one thing is this recognition that you do have time. Like, when I'm watching this Serena and Venus Williams movie, sorry to keep coming back to that, but it's just on my mind. But they did all of that in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like from the time they were 4 till 14 is when Venus Williams went to where she got second in her like this world title match against number one player in the world, right? It's like that was 10 years, and when we're young, especially when we're young, and as you get older, and this is one of the advantages that we have, you start to come to this realization that you have way more time than you think. And making the goal so big and like saying, I want to become a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever it may be, you think you have to get there so quickly, but it's like this slow, steady pace that is, and that consistency is what really actually pays off. And if you really look at like what can you accomplish in 10 years, it's like, holy shit. And actually Tony Robbins has a quote about that. He says most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade, right? And I think with old age it comes that you have this mindset that it's like, oh, I got tons of time, for me it came because not that we're old, or I'm way older than you, but like not that we're old, but like
there's more gray hair.
Yeah. Right? Oh yeah. There's definitely a
little more gray hair in the beard too.
Yeah. 100%. Right. So, but one thing that I realized is that I'm just as energetic as I was when I was 20 at 43. Right. And for some reason, when you're a 20-year-old, you think that energy is going to go away. But then, in fact, it just keeps increasing to me. I'm sure there will be a point where I have less. I have yet to see that yet, right? But there will be a point, maybe when you're 90, where you start slowing down a little bit, or 80, you start slowing down. But I think the big thing is for those people, they lose their purpose, right? And I think at an early age, it's that you don't know what your purpose is. And somewhere along that 30-year-old range is when things really begin to shift. Now, you don't have to turn 30 or 43 or whatever to have these realizations. I think you said it, you can start it like slowly by just like increasing your knowledge and like coaching yourself and like making the commitment to consistency, these types of things.
Yeah, it's just like it's funny, there's lots of stuff like they're saying like your brain changes when you get to like 35, 40, midlife, and it kind of becomes like less about you and more about other people. There's lots of stuff on that, but I think it's more like you just get to a point that time means something different to you. Like you said, when you're 20 or you're in high school, the little high school drama means the most to you because you've only really experienced that type of drama before. But if you've experienced, tragedies and things in your life or whatever the case may be, you just have more perspective the older you get, right? Yeah. And you kind of realize that, like you said, you do have more time, but also time is finite. So you kind of just get smarter with what you do with your time. Like that's what I kind of found is that like I'm not wasting time on the couch watching TV anymore.
No.
Watching a movie, like that isn't something that I'm going to spend my time on. Yeah. I'd rather like open a book and learn or spend time with my wife or go for a walk with my dog or something like that. That's going to, the input is going to give me an output that's going to benefit me down the road. Which in our life, I think like the biggest thing in our society now is that like, it's not so much about like what you do, it's what you don't do. Cause we're in a world of abundance. So you could go eat McDonald's every day if you want to. It's more about the choice of like not doing that. Right.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing on like evolution and like we got here because we're hunter gatherers and we used to go and, kill a deer and eat the whole thing in one setting. Well, we were still programmed that way over the years. So like, how do you sort of weigh those things in the society that we have now, right?
Yeah, and we're gonna start getting real deep here if I start going to that. But like, ultimately, like with spiritual growth, there comes a point when you can transcend the mind and the body, and you let go of the ego. Essentially, that would be ultimately the state of enlightenment. And then when you do that, you also let go of any of like the body's addictions or needs, so it's like you no longer need to have that piece of cake, to feel good. It's like you already feel good because you're like connected to God, universe, whatever you want to call it, right? So there is a point in spiritual growth where you can transcend all of that primitive mind stuff, right?
Interesting.
I'm definitely not there yet because I still like cake.
Yeah, me too. I love, and what's that cheesecake?
Oh yeah, cheesecake at my house. Oh, best
That's
cheesecake
good,
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's like it's definitely it comes to a point, but if you make the commitment to, I think the number one thing that you did with respect to this transformation and this realization, whatever you want to call it, is you set the intention to be committed to your own personal spiritual development. Like that was the key. And just in a year and a half, like, man, it's like the transformation that you've kind of undergone. Like you said, you're already a successful guy. You're running, this big company with 6 businesses and managing a bunch of employees. But now I think you're at this next level here where this next shift for you is going to be like an internal spiritual kind of shift, is I think is what's happening.
Yeah. And for me, it's like the fear of failure maybe was like a bigger thing, right? Putting yourself out there before, and it's like, but at the end of the day, like for me, if I fail at this, I know that I gave everything I had for it, right?
Yep.
And then I'll pick myself up and I'll go right back at it again.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know if it's freeing or whatever the case may be with that. It's just like, I'm just not going to stop until I get to where I feel like I want to go to. And it's not going to be linear. I know that. I'm aware of that. It's going to be, the time's difficult, and you're going to look in the mirror and be like, what are you doing? But at the end of the day, like, I know where I want to go, and I'm going to do everything I have to get to that point. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's another amazing point, is that you got to know where you want to go.
Yeah.
Right. It's like one of the favorite things I do with my clients is I do this thing called like the clarity tool. And it's like, essentially it's like a GPS. It's like, where are you now and where do you want to go? And it's like, if you don't have a GPS, and you don't know where you are or where you want to go, it's like all 3 of them go hand in hand. A GPS is useless if you don't know where you are. Yeah. It's useless if you don't know where you want to go. But if you don't have the GPS and you know where you are and you know where you want to go, but you don't have that path to get there, the plan, I guess, then it's also useless, right? So yeah, I think that's where it begins, is like by kind of setting it out. And here's the cool thing about this too, is like, you can now in this day and age, you can design whatever life you want, like when you really sit down with it, you may not want to be a billionaire, because like there's a lot of responsibility around being a billionaire, like you understand it, like with running 6 Tim Hortons. It's like, man, there's a lot of effort that goes into running 6 Tim Hortons, It's like it's a huge operation. I got my retreat out there. It's like, this is a big operation, and it requires a lot of my attention. Imagine, that's at like a company that's going to make like $1 million a year, let's say. Imagine making like $1 billion a year. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, like, and that comes back to, if you don't have your own shit together and you're doing something like that, good luck. Like, you're not going to get it done. Right?
No, so you won't even get to that level. No. So it's not really even that big of a concern. But what I'm saying is, you can design your life however you want to design it. So, for me, I want to design a life where, I've recognized, like, I love like working and entrepreneurship, and I love spiritual growth and all. I love working with clients, but I don't want that to be all that I do. Like right now, I'm probably more efficient and more busy than I've ever been in my entire life, and I recognize that it's too much. Like I'm just like, this pace is just not sustainable. So can some things change with delegation? And I know I got a sale of a business, sure, but I've recognized from this process that, like, I think I want to be working like, 4 days a week kind of thing. 4 8-hour days a week, I think would be great. 3-day weekends, whatever it may be. And just having that time to like relax and recharge. I just went away for the weekend, and it was good to like, just take that moment to like kind of rest, and if you don't have that time built in, and especially now that I have a kid, it's like, you want to see that kid grow up. But I still think though that you can be insanely efficient with your time, even if you're only working. I think I can design $1 million a year per business, $1 million a year business, working 4 hours or 4 days a week for sure.
Well, I was talking, a couple things, like the Spotify CEO. Yeah. Like his life, did some research onto his life. Like the guy wakes up at 7:00, he goes for like a 2-hour walk, reads the newspaper at 10. Like it's all about the design, like you said. Like I think that a lot of times we grew up in the industrial age where like it was like, you're going to work at Chrysler's 40 hours a week. That's a good week. Yeah. What if you could do it in 3 hours, which you needed to accomplish in 40 hours, right? With systems and things like that, like we talked about. That I just think we're a little bit brainwashed on what hard work is a little bit. And that, if you're above it, like the Covey kind of example, the fourth Q4 kind of person where you're like a step ahead of everything and you're less reactive, I think that sets you up for like a better kind of quality of life. But I'm not looking to like work 100 hours a week and like be flying all over the place. That's not really what I'm looking to, like be ahead of things, put people in position to run businesses, and oversee them, kind of thing. Like I think that's where you can get the most bang for your buck in those type of positions,
100%. And you need to be able to use people as leverage, and that's one of the places that I've suffered, because I've been in that mindset of like, I got to do it all on my own, and I get that. So you got to put people in the proper places. But also nowadays is that, like what you said about the hard work, and it's like, if hard work was the only element that you needed for success, is like every construction worker would be, be rich, right? Because these guys work real fucking hard.
They work hard.
Yeah, real hard, right?
Tim Hortons frontline people, they work hard.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Hard job.
So there's more to it than just working hard. And you could use the old adages about working smart, but it's like just something as simple as a system, can save you like so much time. And I see it in like the resistance to implementing a system, because you're like head down, I need to get this done, and you never want to take your head up to like create a system that would probably save you hours and hours of time, because you're too focused on having your head down, right? And so that's like been the big shift for me recently, is recognizing that it's okay to lift my head up and be like, how can I make this better and more efficient, right? And but it's sometimes hard to take that step away, because you get so wrapped up in it. And then I think that's the benefit that you have of coming from the systems background. And,
it was funny, like just the idea of like working on your business versus working in your business, right? Yeah. And like the idea, like I think like near the end of my career at Tim Hortons, like I didn't really go in a restaurant probably for like the last year. But I had like people in place and systems in place that I was getting information from all the employees, so I knew what was going on at a lower level. And it just like, I guess like a little bit of like, I'm a little bit lazy, but I'm also a hard worker, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So it's like, there's times where I don't want to be told what I have to do. So I would like put systems in place to still get the information you need to get out of your business, but at the same time, make sure that we're hitting the targets that we need to hit, and if there's ever a point where the targets weren't getting hit, then I'm going in, right? But I would rely on my people to execute those things that need to be executed, right? And if they didn't, then we'd have a discussion about it and figure out how we can best move forward. But I think that there's always a time when you start out that you have to like be in your business, right? And like you have to be the one with the flag, with everybody behind you leading the way. But I think that there's a point where you want to get out of that, so you can work on your business and work on other businesses and kind of get that one over there, and you're moving on to the next thing, sort of thing. So I was really lucky to be in a position, like I said, with Tim Hortons, to kind of like work up through the organization. Then all of a sudden I'm running it, and I was kind of could do whatever I wanted with it. And that's sort of how I built it, was like working on it versus working in it, sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that comes with time, and it's amazing that you're able to get to that level. And it's a testament to systems and to, your level of awareness, and to be able to be like, okay, I can take that step back now. And I'm probably going to benefit way more by taking that step back than being on the front lines, because you can't be at 6 stores at the same time.
No, you can't.
Yeah. Right? So you're almost forced to create systems and policies and procedures, and taking that step back, So let's just shift gears a bit. You're into, like you said, you're getting into like venture capitalism and, angel investing, that kind of thing. And, you're like heavily kind of involved in like the community, and like that's a whole nother world, that I haven't even really ventured down, but I'm starting to like realize like there's lots of potential there, with respect to like there's money to be had out there if you have an idea and you really understand how to execute on it. But two, there's like tons of opportunity out there, with respect to like investing in these like really smart people. Yeah,
I got lucky. Like honestly, like it was like completely by accident that I fell into this world. That a good friend of mine, Ryan Donnelly, knew a company that came from Silicon Valley to Windsor, and we got hooked up with them. And we were kind of like, they were a manufacturing company that does camera vision AI, and we were like manufacturing in the Tim Hortons drive-through. They're very similar, like principles behind it, and like let's test it out, right? And then that led to an investment, which led to the group, angel investment group here in Windsor, was like, hey, you invested in a company. Do you want to be part of our group? And I was like, what's an angel investor? Like I had no idea. Right. And just got in that world and I was like, holy smokes, I love this stuff. Like you feel like you're in the future. You get to meet with a lot of interesting people. I'm still kind of navigating my way around it, but in Windsor specifically, there's so much talent here, and I never really understood it. That like our engineering talent is like one of the premier places in the world for engineering.
Oh,
talent.
really? Yeah.
And what I feel is that like a lot of it's in automotive, and I think it's kind of moving towards greenhouse and some other industries. And we're lucky to be in this position in Windsor that we have these talented people that want to work here. And like I said, I'm new to it. I'm learning. I'm coming in with eyes wide open. I'm not pretending that I know everything. I'm asking questions. It's kind of like a whole new kind of thing for me because I've always been the boss, whether it's like Tim Hortons or, coaching hockey or things like that. So it's a little bit humbling. But I'm really trying to take the approach of like, who are the best people? How do I learn from them? What can I give them for that, transaction there? And then just trying to make Windsor better, because I think there's an opportunity that Windsor's got an opportunity to be like a great place. Like you can see that people from Toronto are moving down here. The real estate's the cheapest in, it doesn't feel that way. Living here right now,
it is still the cheapest in the country.
Cheapest in the country, and I think a lot of people are becoming aware of like, hey, we were surrounded by lakes. We got Detroit right there. I think that we just have a good thing going on here, and it's cool to be a part of it. Yeah,
man, that's awesome to hear, and I'm looking forward to once I get the exit out of Treehouse there, to start diving into that world a little bit, because it is super interesting, and it's kind of like being able to like in some ways also like give back, I mean, when I started off my company, I had my girlfriend at the time's parents lent me $50,000, and that's how I got into it. Was if it wasn't for their belief in me, then I may have never been here, and at some way, shape, or form. So I like the idea of like helping people like get something that they really believe in off the ground, and then again we're using that word belief. It's like that's the one thing I'm guessing that you're probably looking for in these guys, is that they got to believe that this thing is gonna take off.
Well, it's funny, like. Again, I stumbled into this world and I wrote a check and I didn't really think anything of it. Like so now that I'm kind of more on the ground level with it, like that's probably the biggest piece of this whole thing. The investing in these companies is that, there's 23-year-old kids that are very smart, but like they've never made mistakes in business before, and I have made mistakes in business before. So how can I help them, steer them, or who's a person that I know that can help their business, or, and I think that, that's kind of the cool part. Like I haven't been in it long enough to see like a company that I've been involved with have some great success. Mm-hmm. But you can tell that these young people are like, they just need some help. And, I think that it's great if a young person's starting a business at 20 years old or 30 years old or 25. Like we need more of that. Like we need more entrepreneurs. We shouldn't be afraid of starting businesses and taking risk and things like that.
Yeah. And I think it also leads into like not being afraid to fail. It's like, we kind of talked about both sides of that. It's like there's a fear of failure, of making that leap, quitting your job and starting your business, but there's also the fear of like not doing the norm, or the fear of the society kind of backlashing at you. So it's like there are like a lot of challenges that come up, and I think you're also in a position to help people navigate those as well, and learn how to ignore all the naysayers out there. Like when I started my company, it was like I think every family member. When I first started my first company when I was 16, and every family member I had was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like go get a job at Chrysler, sell real estate, whatever it was, become a financial planner. Like they wanted me to have jobs that had security and pensions and benefits and all these things. And luckily, for some reason I had I know why. It was about my desire, and I know why the desire was there also, but like, but that drove me to push through all of that, and it got me to the place where I was able to, create this company, and now I'm in a place of like giving back as well. So I think eventually, that is like one of the things that we talk about, like when we get older, is that it does become less about you and more about like giving, and it's like this is another like. Something that's been around for 2,000 years is like it is in giving that we receive. Mm-hmm. And like when you stop focusing so much on like what it is that you can get and start focusing on what you can give, usually you end up getting, which is like a nice little benefit from it.
I think people want to help you, like mostly. You know what I mean? Like I think that a lot of times, like what is it? I read something the other day that it's like there's this guy that went around 100 days of rejection. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So this guy like felt that he was being held back by like the fear of failure. So he's like 100 days. I'm gonna look at rejection right in the face. So he like showed up at a random person's house with like a flower, and like was like, I want to plant this in your backyard. And the guy's like, you're not planting this in my backyard. But like, you know, Mrs. Daisy over here, she loves flowers. She'll definitely so he planted it in her backyard, right?
Oh, cool.
And he kind of realized that this like fear of rejection is kind of like a false sort of thing, and like it's really not that big of a deal. And once you get used to being uncomfortable, then nothing is going to stop you, sort of thing. Now, I don't think I'm going to go plant a flower in someone's backyard kind of thing, but there is times where you put yourself out there, and maybe, you know, someone's like, hey, no, not now, but you got to put yourself out there. And I think that we don't do that enough, especially in Windsor, because we come from blue collar, like you said. Go work at Chrysler's. That's a safe place, or get your ticket, right? And I think that that's changing, but I think that you got to put yourself out there. Right, it's the only way you're going to get what you want is if you put yourself out there.
100%, 100%. Let's kind of like wrap this up with like, because you know we talked a lot about like learning and the power of learning. Like, what are some of your like go-to books?
I'm a big Naval Ravikant guy.
Oh yeah, I listened to his like he had like a 3-hour or something podcast like where he because he did a series of all these like little podcasts, right? So, but I listened to them all together.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was cool. I thought it was really interesting. I really love what he talked about leverage. He talks about like people leverage is like the oldest leverage in the world, right? So it's like, you know, it's like you can make $100 an hour doing what it is, but if you can hire 10 people that you pay $20 an hour and they can all go make you $100 an hour, that's great leverage. But we are actually coming into a time where the leverage of people is becoming less and less great because everyone is understanding that they can do whatever they want to do on their own, you know, which is kind of like a strange place to be because you're losing the people leverage kind of thing. Now, granted, there will always be people that want to work that don't want to be the entrepreneur and they want to work underneath somebody that has a grander vision than them. For sure, I believe that's not going anywhere, but we have to change the way we leverage people. Before we used to incentivize people with money and these types of things, but now you have to become like a really amazing leader and get people to like want to follow you, whether you're paying them or not, kind of thing, right? But then the thing that I really took away was like the next leverage and the more important leverage is technology, right? And that's the game changer.
That's what I took from that book. Like I did the podcast, and then I was like, I'm behind. Like, you know what I mean? Like technology is here. It's not going anywhere. So that Naval Ravikant book was a big one. I also read a book that kind of got me on technology. It was the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And it's from the World Economic Forum. And they talked about all the changing technologies with Bitcoin and some of this other stuff that's kind of like I never even heard of before I read the book. I read a great book called The Bitcoin Standard. And I read the Fourth Industrial Revolution on your recommendation, which was like talking about like synchronicities, like you know. So Cam comes to me and he says, "Hey, let's get up, let's together, let's have lunch or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah." So then we ended up having dinner at my house, and so he comes over, and like that day, someone had messaged me the book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, like sent me a picture, said this book is amazing, you got to read it, and then the first book you recommended to me that day was that same book. And I was like, what the fuck? Weird.
So it's like, you know, that was like the universe saying, hey, you got to read this. And, you know, the big takeaway I got from that book was this move towards, and they basically say it straight out, the World Economic Forum, we're moving to like a standard living wage type of thing, right? And so how does that look for the entrepreneur is like is what you got to kind of wrap your mind around now. Do you need to be planning for it? I don't think so, but you do have to. I mean, I guess you do have to be planning for it, but I don't think it should stall you know, your drive to like create, essentially, is the way I feel.
Yeah, like I mean, I think it's probably like 20 years really away from being like some like earth shattering type of thing. Like it's like the you know, like the boiling water with the frog. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like it's going to be boiling and you put the frog in, he's going to jump out. We're not going to really know that it's happening, sort of thing. But it's interesting. Like, they keep talking about it, that the people that own the technology are going to be the people that are going to be the most successful. And you can see it at a Google. You know, most of it's software oriented now with Google and Microsoft and all these companies that have the big tech, Facebook, right? But Bitcoin, blockchain, those type of things are hopefully going to decentralize these big tech companies from having all those power, because it kind of flips it into the people have the power.
Yes.
Now, I'm a capitalist at heart. Not a socialist at heart, but you know, I do think that certain people should have UBI, right? But I think that it should be a temporary thing, and then we should all kind of have to make our own money and stuff. But it's interesting. Like, there's a big dynamic of change that's happening, and COVID's kind of expedited it.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're not looking forward to the future of like what that looks like, then I think that you're at a disadvantage. Like, I really do. You know? Yeah,
it's just like people, like, you know, when Facebook first started coming out, and my friends that didn't have Facebook, I just lost touch with them.
Yeah,
you know, like literally, you know, it's like, you know, they weren't, you know, connected to that technology. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know, but it's just the truth of what happened, you know? And so, yeah, I always want to have my finger on the pulse of like, kind of like what's next, you know? And, I think, you know, this whole thing that with what's going on with Bitcoin, I think this is really going to shake things up, you know. And I've been like digging into Bitcoin and these types of things and crypto, and you know, I still don't have my head wrapped around it fully. But the one thing I did recognize from it was the fact that our system, which was once on the gold standard, is now no longer. And so now they can just print money at will, essentially. And this is what we're seeing right now. Like, this is exactly what we're seeing. And it could be setting us up for a big problem. You know, we keep printing money to give to businesses with wage subsidies and all these types of things, giving people CERB. We're going to create mass inflation, and eventually it's going to create some sort of stock market collapse. Is that collapse the collapse that pushes everyone to the Bitcoin standard?
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know, right? You know, so it's like, it's a strange time, because if you have money, it's like, where do you put it? Because now you're like in this spot. Whereas, so Bitcoin is essentially is the new gold. Could be the new gold, I guess I should say. And they're only producing like 21 million of them. Yeah. You know? So it's like fixed and finite. I think it's really cool. And it's also decentralized. Meaning no one person has control over it, like the world, the community has control over it, which is really cool. So I think being involved in crypto is huge. I think, you know, this guy that I was big into it said, I think everyone should have 1% of their wealth in it. And I was like, I think it's a pretty good estimate, you know?
Yeah, I with crypto, I purposely stayed away for a while because I knew that I'd probably get like engulfed with it, with the opportunity there. So recently I had a conversation with someone that's like a pretty big player in the crypto world in Canada. Yeah. And now I'm in. The technology is really the interesting thing. Yeah. I think when you start digging into the technology of it and what the different tokens are trying to accomplish is like a very interesting concept. They're all different. They all have different purposes. You kind of got to figure out which one works for you, but like it's someone explained it. It's like, you know, Web3, whatever you want to call it, the crypto world it's about giving the power back to the people and like what that's going to mean. And like, it's almost like what the internet was for electricity is sort of what the crypto blockchain is going to be for the internet. If that makes any sense. Yeah. So it's like, you know, when our parents picked up a cell phone, they didn't really know what it was, and it was weird and foreign to them. And I think that that's sort of what our generation's going through with crypto, is that we're kind of like, what is this thing? We don't really know what to make of it. But I think if you get involved in it, right, it gives you an understanding of what it is, aside from just Bitcoin, Ethereum, you know, the main players, because there's a lot of stuff out there with it. Yeah, 100%.
And then the other thing is too, you know, that I want to circle back on, because this is what happens when you get into technology a lot, is you begin to start getting like really paranoid that you're missing out. You know, it's like, oh my God, like I need to get involved in this. And it's like, and this circling back to like one of your points, it's like opportunities are literally a dime a dozen. They are everywhere, and you can pick whatever opportunity it is that you want to take advantage of. So it's like, if you think your opportunity is in crypto, then go after crypto. And if you miss crypto, guess what? There'll be another one coming around. Like, there's always something, you know. 5 years ago, it was the marijuana stocks, and now it's crypto, and there'll always be something that you can electric vehicles, whatever. It's like there's always be something. So it's like being careful, I guess, and cautious that it's like you're not going to miss out. Like you miss one opportunity, you just pick up the next one.
Yeah, and you just learn, right? Like, you figure out, like, I think if you're going to have a lot of success, you got to kind of stay in one realm to get really good at it. And then you got to be aware of that, right? That you're not jumping ship to the next one, because you'll never be really successful. But yeah, just talk to smart people that are smarter than you and see what they're doing. And if they have skin in the game and they're involved in it, then take their advice. And if they don't have skin in the game, then weigh their advice a little bit differently than what you normally would, right?
100%.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, man. Well, this has been great, Cam. Thanks for coming on. I think we got a lot more that we could dig into here. And I think you're on like this really great path and like a quick trajectory too. From like a year and a half ago, tree almost falling to kind of like the awareness level that you've kind of got to in a very short period of time. And granted, you have all these other factors that kind of were guiding you in this direction, but then that moment was kind of like, hey, I need to start coaching myself, and that was like the turnaround point for you. So I think you're going to end up helping a lot of people, man, whether it's in angel investing or getting on more podcasts or whatever it may be, in some way, shape, or form. I think that's what's going to come from all of this. So yeah, I think we should do part 2. So where do you think you're going to be in the next year, and then I'll have you back on in a year, and you can tell me if you got there.
I don't know. I'm going to keep just doing the things I'm doing, honestly, like the day-to-day, meditate in the morning, read, keep talking with interesting people, and I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Like, again, I'm really interested in this venture capital side of things and like what that means. And we don't really have that opportunity here in Windsor for something like that. So maybe a year from now, I got a venture capital firm, and I'm working with my buddies, and we're looking at different companies, and hopefully allowing some young entrepreneurs to have some success, and we can piggyback on it, kind of thing. So
love that. Yeah. So let's do it again. 1 year from now, November 2022.
Sounds good.
Thanks for coming on, man. Don't forget, if you guys haven't already, click that subscribe button. And every single Wednesday, we're releasing a new podcast. So thanks for taking the time to listen. Thanks again, Cam, for coming on. And we'll see you again next week.